So what's your role at Aon?
So I lead human sustainability globally, and that's a relatively new part of the practice that we deliver to our clients, and it's really looking at the business and performance end of wellbeing. So rather than we have a huge team of people across the world at Aon who focus on like the individual wellbeing and sort of brokerage of benefits and helping clients to review wellbeing strategies and put interventions in place. But I'm really looking at the organisational and team dynamic, because I genuinely feel like you could have all the best initiatives in the world, but if culturally the organisation doesn't support the well-being of people right from the top, the leaders and the managers, then all of that investment might fall flat. So we're really working a lot with leadership. How do we make them accountable for people's well-being? This isn't a HR issue. This is a business issue. And if you get it right, what you'll get is growth and performance. And all CEOs and all boards of directors want growth and performance. They're not always interested when you go in and talk about well-being, unless they can see that there's that tangible improvement in their business. So that's where we operate, and that's
straight off the bat, I love the phrase human sustainability. I really like that.
We didn't make it up. There are other people using that
phrase.
I
like it. I know Deloitte talk a lot about that, don't they?
They
do. And I've seen Aon talk about that. But when I read the work around it, I was like, I really love the way that's framed, with well-being as more of an outcome, and it's influenced by some of these things that you're talking about there, the culture and leadership and all the rest of it. And then that makes it feel like, as you say, more of just a business issue, because we're always struggling with this idea that well-being is the soft and fluffy thing that you do on a Friday afternoon if you've got time.
Exactly.
But it comes in every single part. Do you know what? Sorry. I was having a conversation with one of our members the other day, and they were saying, once you've worked in well-being, it never leaves you. And I think it's because this realization that it's in everything that you do, like when you're writing emails to someone, or when you're doing a meeting, or when you an annual appraisal or a meeting with your manager or whatever, like well-being could be in all of those things. So
and we're here to talk about mental well-being today, but I genuinely think that the root cause of good or bad mental well-being is the environment around you. And obviously we spend so much time at work that's where we can make a difference, and also appreciate that people are coming in with their own stuff that's going on outside of work too. I certainly am. Getting up at 5:15 this morning, getting on a train at Woking to get in here, and then getting a call from my daughter who's woken up in tears because she's slept funny and she can't move her neck, and it's just like, darling, I don't know what I can do.
How can I fix that on a train?
I'm on a train. I'm heading into London. Even if I made the train stop, it would take me an hour to get back to you. So I've just got to try and empower you over the phone with all the rest of this carriage listening to me going, you've got this, you're able to do this, you can just take your time, and talking you through it. But I think as a parent, the whole mental health thing is something that I'm conscious of in my outside of work life as well, and the impact that young people have. The impact they have, the impact that things like technology has on young people and their lives, and these are the people that are going to be coming into our workplace. So I've got this kind of my purpose, and why I love doing what I do is if I can shape the workforce of the future for the better, then it'll be a better place when my kids get there in just a few years' time. So I've got a 12 and a 15-year-old, and it's it's
tough.
It's a different world than
so
the
you
one
got
I grew up in.
you got 3 years,
yeah
until they hit the workplace.
Exactly.
The time is on.
It is. So I've got a lot to do in 3 years. No, it's obviously like all cultural change. It's going to take time. It's going to be gradual. But if I can work with some big organisations and they start to adopt some of the things that we're talking about, and then that becomes like something that other organisations look up to and start asking, well, how are they driving this sustainable level of performance? Why have they got people that are saying good things and thriving? Then maybe
that's what we
it will
need,
spread.
isn't it? That's what we need. We need it to get to the point where, in order to survive as a business, you need to take that stuff seriously, because you're being outperformed by organisations who do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that's essentially because money talks, right, for businesses, because that's ultimately what they're there to do. So whilst the moral imperative to, do good things for people is there, and I believe people do take that seriously, ultimately it's going to come down to how do we perform as a business, and the strength of evidence around that has grown, but I still think it's got a way to go. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely has. So we're starting to see some of the larger organisations actually measuring and reporting wellbeing stats in their annual report and accounts. Aon is starting to link things like leadership incentives to improvements in wellbeing as measured through various things like engagement surveys and so on. But I'd love to see a day where we're genuinely, measuring the well-being of individuals, and that is something that is being reported, not just internally but externally as well. And like you say, that it becomes an aspiration for all organisations to do it and to feel that accountable for it and obliged to, do the right thing for their employees.
There's things impacting organisations already, but they don't seem to take it as seriously as they perhaps should. So, for example, things like Glassdoor and whatnot, that in a way is a measure of well-being, right? Because a lot of the things written on there are about how you've been treated and what the environment was like. And I do think that genuinely influences, especially if you think about new generations who are very savvy with tech and social media and all the rest. That will have influenced people deciding whether or not they're going to work for an organisation.
Yeah.
But I don't know, from some of the businesses that I've seen, and they're not all the same, maybe they see that and they want the numbers to go up, but they're not really engaged with that as a key metric.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, right? It's things like
we do see quite a lot of lip service.
Yeah.
Like, as I say, the most public thing you can read is the report and accounts, and often you'll see that they're saying, we really believe in this, we look after our people, but then you meet that organisation, you go in and work with them, and you realise they're aspirations rather than reality. And how do you then actually embed those things into the organisation? Well, it has to start at the top, but it has to be methodically then rolled out. It has to be something that is in not just, the way you're reporting and measuring, but your people strategy, your talent strategy, your mission, your values, and it has to then flow into, as I said, how people are rewarded and how they're, assessed for their performance. Because often people will say, or organisations will say, this is really important to us, but the only thing that somebody's bonused on is their financial results and nothing else. Not how they treat their team, not how many people have left their team, not how many people have been absent in their team. There has to be a more holistic way of measuring success, particularly I think at that sort of leadership and a manager level. We're all accountable for our own well-being, but they've got an accountability for the organisation and team well-being.
Do you think that there's just still this journey that we have to go on? Because we've heard and seen a lot of the same conversations over the last 10 years. Another reason for this podcast is to kind of shine a light on is there progress? And there definitely is, but sometimes it is disheartening, isn't it? And you still get those characters in a business now and again who just nope to well-being, or it's quite alarming sometimes how bold some people can be about their disconnection to this.
We can all think of very famous leaders, Elon Musk, for example, who would say, absolutely the opposite. I don't want people to have work-life balance. I want them to dedicate their life to the mission that I have here at SpaceX or Tesla or whatever. I expect them to give up their weekends to be here when we're launching a rocket or whatever it is,
It's startling though, right?
Have you sorry to go on off that, but have you seen Trump saying as part, if he gets in, he's going to make Elon Musk a secretary of efficiency or something like this?
Yeah, I love Trump. He's like, no, please don't put that on the podcast because that taken out of context would look really bad.
We're actually just going to put that as the caption. No, we really will.
But,
it's the end of my career. I'm leaving.
But the definition of turkeys voting for Christmas, you do realise that's going to be that's going to hurt. Like when
Yeah.
this Secretary of Efficiency suddenly tries to tell
as
you
if,
that.
as if America doesn't do little enough to protect workers'
know.
rights. Let's bring Elon
Yeah.
Musk in to make us work even harder.
But then, so you've got these evil leaders who are saying this, but then
Yeah.
why do people believe that? You know, there must be people who are sat at home thinking, yeah, that person over there's not working hard enough. You know.
But that's why on the ground we still need, like, as much as we need the sort of transformative cultural shifts in education, we still need to just demonstrate to the young people, to your daughter, like, how is she going to be supported today with her discomfort that she's in because of her, you know, wherever she's going, school, college,
yeah.
you know, like, is she going to be seen for the fact that she's not feeling 100%?
I did ring up. I did.
Yeah, that wasn't.
When she got there, I was
Yeah.
like, "Can you just get her a year or a tutor or someone to check in on her?" And
But you know, like, what's
Yeah.
the education? How's the education system set up so that our young people who go to a school not feeling 100% because of something physical or mental, like, how are they supported and seen? And then what we get is we get less of the people who support Trump and Elon Musk over time, at least in this country.
Yeah. I do think that my children have had a very different experience in school than I did, in terms of being encouraged to talk about their mental health and their needs and them as an individual. And that's obviously a positive thing in my view. But I do think that there is a bit of a disconnect between the generations. And so Gen Zs going into the workforce are now expecting that same treatment that they've had throughout school, that their voice matters, that they have a right to, you know, be heard and you know, their needs should be catered for. They expect that when they get to the workplace, and they don't always get it, because you might get a manager who's Gen X like myself, who's like, well, I didn't get any of that, you know, nobody cared about my well-being. Well, that doesn't mean it was right, you know, just because, you know, we went through, you know, a certain experience with work. There is no other option. There's no other big pool of talent that we're going to get from any other country, you know, or any other place. The Gen Z's coming through our school system are what we've got, and we've got to learn how to, you know, work with them.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we talk a lot about with leaders and managers, is bridging that generational divide and really, you know, sometimes it's really simple things, but just that mismatch of one person's experience versus another's.
Yeah.
And there's a real sort of like sector influence on how this rolls out as well, isn't there? Like, we've sort of spoken specifically to people in professional services in the past, like, say, law firms, for example, where there's just like, there's a rite of passage, right? Like, you got to go and like slog it out for 10 years and work till 2 a.m. and sleep under your desk and get delivery for, you know, food at 1 a.m. to get this like client work done and billable hours and all that kind of thing. That firmly still exists.
Yeah. It does.
There are challenges to it in the
But they
sector.
are starting to see, obviously in the most extreme cases, people taking their own lives as a result of work-related stress. And also, you know, on a less serious note, insurers and providers refusing to pay out when people are having to take time out of work if they feel that it's as a result of the working environment.
That's interesting.
That they, you know, you've caused this, basically. You're culpable for the fact that this person is off.
That's fascinating. So the insurers themselves almost kind of looking at it a little bit more critically, like, what are we covering?
I have heard this starting to happen.
Quite
and maybe
right.
that will change things, because then it's a genuine risk to the organisation, an uninsurable risk, essentially, that something has to change.
Yeah.
Power to the insurers.
Well, we were talking about this, weren't we, in terms of whether, for example, the HSE should have more power, you know, to fine or incentivise businesses to create these environments, you know, implementing things like the ISO standard and whatnot.
Yeah.
And my take on it is that, we should be a bit more bullish about that. Maybe it's not. I always kind of then get a bit stuck with, do I want lots of government intervention? Not necessarily, but there are points where I'm like, something serious has got to happen, because if you just leave it up to, you know, it's the right thing to do, and you know, and look at this and look at that, people just don't do it. And like you say, at the harm end, this isn't just about improving people's well-being and them coming to work with a smile on their face. Like, it's reducing harm and potentially deaths like you talked about before.
Yeah. I mean, not just in the legal sector either. You know, seeing examples even, you know, in professional services, like you say, still billable hours, still, you know, lots of travel, big client commitments, pressure, deadlines, people dropping dead literally of a heart attack in their sort of 50s and 60s, and that clearly is, you know, partly at least attributable to the culture and the environment that they're working in.
And have they had a happy life along the way?
I wish I knew the statistic. This is terrible for podcast now because I don't know the number, but I
Can
heard
we, like, edit it
I can like edit it in. It'll just, if I just leave a gap and then it will put it in. I heard a statistic which has obviously stuck with me so much I can't remember it, but it was how long people draw their pension for, and the number was ridiculously low. I feel like it was like 5 years or something. So essentially, people were dying after the 5 years of taking their pension. The average, this is. And it painted a picture of, you know, you slog so hard for your working life with this idea of, if I just get to retirement, that'll be okay. But then that doesn't last so long because your health's been so badly affected by that workplace. That you don't get to make the most of it then.
It's so sad, isn't it? That's why we have to try and make the most of it. Or like not live for retirement, which you do see a lot of people. When I retire, that's when I'll take up the hobbies, and that's when I'll, you know, have more time to spend with my friends and family and travel the world. But it's too late.
Should we all quit and just go on a trip?
Do you know what? I'm really tempted.
Team trip.
My father-in-law, exactly as you described, that's what happened to him. He retired, and within less than a year, he died. And it has made both me and my husband think we're going to retire early. You know, we won't necessarily have the money to live an extravagant lifestyle, but surely it's better, like you say, to like go and travel and have fun when you're still young and fit enough to enjoy it.
But then maybe this is idealistic, but you shouldn't have to retire. That's what we started by saying, isn't it? That, you know, you get, you know, things like, for example, and again, I'm not holding this up as a panacea, but like 4-day working week. Like, could that be something that gives people a whole extra day in their lives, you know, that they can use to do things that they really want to do? And then when they're in the workplace, if it wasn't so stressful, then perhaps they might be able to make the most of those 3 days that they've got off, you know? So
I think there's been quite a lot of evidence that the 4-day week does work, and that the trial that was run, the majority, I think 90% of the companies that were involved continued with it in some way.
I feel like the main pushback against it is that thing you talked about earlier. I worked 5 days, so should you. I genuinely think that's one of the biggest pushbacks, which is ridiculous. Like, if it is an organisation that I'm thinking like I need a service from, so I like having them as a business. If they work 2 days a week and could still provide me with the service, so like fine.
You don't care.
No, I don't care.
You still want to pay for the service.
Exactly.
What it's worth.
I wouldn't think, they're not working hard enough.
It's flexibility for me as well. Like, I've got a little 10-month-old baby at home, and like my favourite thing to do is to take him on a Zoom call and just show whoever's on the call that I can do this. You know, sometimes it can be disruptive, and I have to pick my calls carefully. But you know, it is possible to, you know, because I'm migrating from maternity leave back to work. It's possible to do that, and sometimes I can sort of see some discomfort or people being a bit like, oh, okay, but I'm determined to like I'm determined to make it okay, and I think you know, more people should be turning up to work with that too. That too, Well, my husband's actually with the baby today, and I overheard him say, yes, I'm looking after Oliver because Ali's got to go to London. I was like, no, you're looking after Oliver because he's your son.
Yes, exactly. I think that is the problem, and maybe it won't be when our kids get to this age, but I still feel like, although things have moved on and things have got better, I am still the default parent, and I am still working, you know, even though I'm working full time. There's sort of gender roles. I think it would be great if more men took like the shared parental leave, because I think that's where it starts, is that, you know, for me, especially 15 years ago when I had my child, my husband had a week and I took, you know, 9 months or whatever. And then I became the expert in all things baby, and of course he wasn't capable.
And slowly the gap widens.
Yeah, and it just becomes like you're then in these roles. Whereas I think in other countries where men do take more of a role
Where
in
is
the
it?
early
Sweden?
days. Yeah.
Where do we all need to
Yeah,
move
yeah,
to? Sweden?
But the shared parental leave has been there, available for a long time now, and still very few people take it up because culturally it still doesn't feel like what men want to do.
And then there's the gender pay gap.
This is a real this is a real sore spot for me, because I am a huge advocate of this, but my wife is an absolute throwback. And when I mentioned shared parental leave, she was like, "No, I want all this. I want to be the mum." And I was like, "Okay, you do know that's gender roles?" And she was like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'm happy with this gender role." And I was like,
And that's fine, because that's between you two and what works for you guys. But it's just it's the norms, the stigma that just makes it very difficult. But anyway, I'm glad I've got a babysitter for today. For his dad.
Very true. Very true.
So can we, before we lose you, can we ask you about your career? You know, how did you end up doing this?
Well, I joined Aon 16 years ago, and I'd come from another firm where we were doing employee benefits.
Yeah.
So it was sort of the voluntary side of things. So we had like deals and discounts on a website kind of thing. And I joined Aon to help them develop their flexible benefit offering. So this was quite a long time ago. They didn't have their own platform and that kind of thing. And I worked in that team for quite a while, actually, for like 13 years, something like that. So in health and benefits, delivering, flexible benefit programs to clients. And as I became sort of more senior, I started to have more of the consultative conversations with them, which then, of course, went more broader than benefits. So I'm talking about the whole employee value proposition and how does this fit in with your values as an organisation? How does this help to support things like, the gender issues that you might have in your organisation? How does it help to support, your ambitions around the environment? So I started to have those types of conversations with companies. And then a really amazing woman called Rachel Fellows joined Aon as our Chief Global Wellbeing Officer. And I heard her talking about her sort of vision and this concept of human sustainability about 3 years ago now. And I thought, do you know what, that's really interesting, and it's like a natural next step, because it's not completely like leaving behind all of the things that I've done and the contacts that I've got in the industry and the great friends that I've got at Aon, but it is sort of shifting into a slightly more interesting space and having conversations at that more senior level, because of course if we're talking about driving performance in a business, this is kind of the C-suite conversation. This is CEOs, CFOs, COOs, as well as CPOs. And previously I'd really been stuck, in that space, talking to CPOs, HR directors, benefit managers. Nothing wrong with any of those people, but we were sort of uncovering issues, cultural issues, and saying to them, as much as we could put these benefits in place, it's not going to change the fact that people are overworked and stressed out. And they were like, well, that's kind of outside of my remit. I can't affect that. So it's like, if I'm going to really make an impact, I've got to find a way of speaking to the people that really like make the big decisions culturally in an organisation, and I feel that this role allows me to do that. So, here I am.
Amazing.
In a little pod. So good to you.
My last quick question as well is, so you said that you're on a panel today, or you're hosting a panel?
Yeah, we're hosting the roundtable sessions.
And what specific one are you going to be talking about?
So my one is specifically around the roles of leaders and managers in creating a culture where people can thrive, essentially. And I'm going to be asking people some questions around, you're here today because you really believe in well-being, but truthfully, do you think your business really believe? Like if I was going to speak to your CEO, what would they say? And then, what are you doing in order to change that, if that's not the case? And the multi-generational bit, that's one of the things that's feeding into my discussion with my. But then there's somebody else that's talking more about like measuring the impact of strategy, and another of my colleagues is doing one on AI. So there's there's a mixture of different roundtables.
Yeah, I really like that setup with the roundtables in the sense that it's employers, isn't it? Primarily, they're employers who are on this roundtable.
They're all employers.
Absolutely. So it's an opportunity for them to cross-pollinate some of their ideas and thoughts, and that's what we need.
So I'm not talking really, other than to say hi. This is who we are. This is the format for today, and then it's just facilitating.
Ask the killer questions.
Capturing, asking the questions, capturing the notes. At the end, we just do a little roundup. What was the key takeaways from each of the round tables, and then we'll write up our little white paper and send it out to people.
Yeah, I guess it's just so good to give people the forum to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah.
Rather than just coming and listening.
Absolutely.
So well, good luck
Thank
with
you.
it. Enjoy.
I'm sure it'll be.
We'll look forward to seeing the white paper.
Yeah, where can people get the white paper? Is that through Make a Difference, or is that through
I
Aon?
think we're just going to distribute it to everybody that came to our sessions, but I'm pretty sure Mad could distribute it to others as well. And,